What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Filsinger Games Character Spotlight with Mike and Brock.
I'm Mike.
I'm Brock, and once again, we're joined by Jeff Manning, whoever that is.
I am everyone's favorite special guest, even though I'm not special. I'm just here most of the time.
He's special, all right.
Hit those follows. I'll be back.
They're below.
Oh,
I
hit those
never do.
follows. I'll be back.
Oh, we lost somebody. We were at 141. Now we're down to
Oh,
140.
That's
it's because I
okay.
missed. It's because I missed last taping. Man, sorry guys.
It's your fault. Well, today we're going to be talking about our own feds and some stuff we have going on and what to look forward to in the future, I suppose.
Yeah, because we all run three different styles of feds.
It's true.
Brock is strictly bootleg.
At the
Jeff
moment,
is Jeff is follows the storyline strictly with no bootlegs,
There you go.
and I am a giant combination of both.
right on.
There's no wrong way to play. It's like a Reese cup.
It's up to you, promoter, right?
I mean, my way's the right way, but
Yeah,
it's okay. We'll get into that.
it's true.
Hey, I was listening to the Uncharted Territories, and Mark Ashby's back playing.
Yes.
Now, is he playing GWF or is he playing some POW?
GWF, he sold his original 500 set to Barry.
Well, I
So
saw Barry completed his collection.
Yeah,
Good for him.
Barry's just missing an Akuma now. And yeah, Mark said he bought a set of original 24, non-colorized. He didn't want the colorized stuff. He wanted the Chuck Carter art.
Hmm.
Had a tournament. He had 3 brackets of 8. They would have a round robin, and his brackets were won by Thantos, Invincible Kraken, and Lord Nexus. Star Warrior was upset by Proteus, which is pretty big upset. And his heavyweight champion was Thantos. And then his tag titles came down between the Gladiators and the Henchmen, and the Henchmen won.
Nice.
Well, welcome back, Mark.
Yeah, welcome back to the fold.
We missed you.
It's true.
I gotta say though, back to the Barry topic and the collecting the original 500. I've never, and I'm a big collector. You guys know. You guys have tuned in some here and there and seen some of my card collection. I've never viewed Champions of the Galaxy as a collectible. It's just a game to me. I mean, once I played with them, I actually sold my EC set back in the day, and I kind of regret it, but not for the same reasons other people would as far as collector. Mainly because I want to create a Hall of Fame, and I'd like to have the card I played with
Yeah.
represented in that Hall of Fame. Like that's, but I've just never viewed it in the same vein as my collections. You know what I mean? It's like a board game, and I bought the new edition.
Hmm.
Well, it's what you're into.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're all into it. We've all been playing it 20 plus, sometimes 30, 40 plus years now.
Right.
But I just don't view the cards as a collectible card. I've collected baseball cards my whole life and various others, and I've never really viewed Champions of the Galaxy in that way. And I don't think many people did until probably the past what 8, 9 years when they started doing con exclusives and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, up until then, you heard very little rumblings about special cards. Maybe the Johnny Rocket or the Synergy or something like that, but that was about it.
Hmm. And they were so widely available for a long time.
Yeah.
Even those ones you just mentioned.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess we're so old school that I don't view it that way. I don't view it as collectible. I
Hmm.
just view it as a game, and I buy the editions when I need them. Anyway,
Well,
not to derail the topic here. That's what I'm here for.
so which one of us wants to start off? I know mine's going to take a while since I run multiple feds. That's what I was thinking. One of you guys could hop on.
Do you want to go all bootlegs to the non-bootleg, or do you want to start non-bootleg to the bootlegs?
Doesn't matter to me. I'll start just so we can get going here.
I just didn't
Um,
know the. I would have started, but I don't have the outline. I want to make sure I'm touching on all the key points you do in reverse. You know what I mean?
I
Point,
got you.
counterpoint, point, counterpoint.
Well, up until late January, I was running a solely bootleg fed on Twitch called Next Dimension Wrestling, which was mainly guys that my friends and I created. And it's going pretty strong. It's 3 years straight, every Sunday here or there. I'd miss one here and there, but it ended with a roster of like 60 plus cards, which is huge because I was running like I had handbooks for the first 3 years, whatever, but I'd also make new cards and characters introduced just on stream, like outside the timeline. And those guys, a lot of them, like their stories never played out, so they're just kind of hanging around with nothing to do really. So I'm in a predicament where I think my roster is way too large. So my idea is going to be to split it up and stream on 2 separate nights. I'm not sure what nights those are going to be, but that's the plan for right now. I'm thinking this is a reboot of my bootleg fed. In the first playthrough, I did like a soft reboot at the beginning of this upcoming year. So my last stream was January. It was December 31st, 2134. So there was like a New Year's Eve show. And so that's where we're gonna start up the 2135. So I believe I don't think it's in the handbook, but I know the first time I did my playthrough with this fed with these cards, I did a soft reboot where I stripped all the champions of their titles just so I could start fresh. I don't think I'm going to do that because there is an established history that, a lot of people were a part of. But I do think that a lot of the stream exclusive characters that weren't really a part of the main storyline are going to get pulled out and put into a separate division, I guess, of the Fed. Just because a lot of those are fan favorite characters on stream, a lot of people like. So I don't want them to just get swept away or lost in the shuffle, but just have their own thing going
Notoriously,
on.
Brock loses them in the shuffle. Even his
There's a
own
lot of
created characters.
there's a lot of guys from my created characters that are lost in the shuffle right now. Because you guys know how it can get sometimes where you get into a rhythm of playing and then it gets to a point where you're just rolling matches to roll matches. Especially when you feel like it's an obligation to keep playing because there's, people who tune in to watch or whatever. But it definitely got to that point with me where I feel like there's just matches to have matches because I had a lot going on in life, like I'm, new kid and everything coming into the house and all that. So
Excuses.
excuses is what it is. But it was a good. I definitely needed this break to recharge, and so now I'm gonna try and work it into a storyline. So I think what I'm gonna do is have like a parent company come in, like a merger, and then they want to have their guys featured, and then the original guys that were there want to be featured. So to do that, they're just going to split into 2 different brands, I guess, within under the same umbrella.
You gonna make like a commissioner for each one?
Probably, there'll be an excuse to make some new cards, but yeah, I'll probably do that. One will be more sports based, and the other one will be more entertainment based, if that makes sense. Try
Oh,
and
it
get
makes sense.
good.
We've got the sports entertainment versus the real wrestling in real life, so
It's
makes
true.
perfect sense.
Yeah, so
It's
that's kind
it's
of what I want to do.
WWF versus NWA.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to do. Make one more story driven, one more stat driven, and just see how it goes. I think what I'm going to do is have the three like a women's champion, singles champion, tag champion, like a world title that like every both shows compete for, but then each show will have their own champions as well. and then to get a shot at the main title, you have to basically surrender your title. Like say, I don't know what I'm going to call them. I need to figure this out because I gave myself a St. Patrick's Day start time to have this up and running. So I'm running out of time here. So I was thinking, you relinquish your title, like say you're that branch champion, you relinquish your title to get a shot at the main title.
Okay,
So that
time out
way,
here. What your what can you're that brand? That's
that
what you
brand,
said.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you called it a name, and I was like, is that a name you're throwing out there? And I'm
No,
like, wait, what? That brand,
no, I don't know
this
what it's going to
brand,
be.
and that brand.
I have to figure that out. But so that's how. So then that'll be constantly, there'll be a constant need to have like tournaments and stuff to name new champions, and that'll keep it fresh. There'll be always. I hate having. I don't even know what you'd call them. Just matches that have no point. Just matches for matches' sake.
But if you're doing it sport based, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So that's
You
what I
know, and
think.
I think that a lot of people run their feds as somewhat sport based with a hint of entertainment. And when
Hmm.
you do it that matches to just have matches, all matches mean something as long as the main prize is the title and
Right.
they're working towards it.
Exactly.
So I mean, I think it's fine matches for matches as long as you're in that context is that the guy has a
Hmm.
plan.
Right. Because the whole
Sometimes I don't
team.
think we get enough matches that are just matches. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
especially WWE is a perfect example. They do the same matches over and over and over. It's gotten a
Right.
little better, but it's still. Do I need to see 50 matches from the same two guys against each other to see who's better?
Yes.
Like
Apparently.
it's let's just no. Let's switch it up a little. I'll get
That's
into
what.
that when I'm talking about my Fed, but I
That's where
just
I think the team aspect of this game kind of gets in the way because everybody's a part of a stable pretty much. So I think I might
yeah,
try and deviate from that a little bit.
a
See
lot of
where
lone wolves.
see where it goes. Yeah.
You can
Have
just
your good
create a
guys and
group
bad
like
guys.
the movie Airheads. We are the Lone Rangers. You're not exactly alone, are you?
Are you going to let the fans still decide feuds and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's fun. That gives them a reason to be there, to be a part of the action and part of the decision making. But they can still book matches and stuff like that with channel points and everything. But that's the route I think I'm going to go, just because the roster is huge and I have all the cards. Like this is the stack of cards. It's a pretty sizable stack, so this could
Now,
very
do you
easily be.
how much what percentage would you say, or not necessarily percentage, but just how much of them are tag teams, or do you do strictly singles?
Most of the tag teams are just thrown together teams. Like there's very few like this. These guys are straight up the tag team. A
So they're
lot of
not
them are.
friends in similar tights.
No, not really. There's a few of those, but mostly it's just like, oh, well, let's put these two guys together because it makes sense. Like the tag team champions I have right now, they were put together on stream. We did this like actual lethal lottery tournament where we drew the names live on stream, so there was no shenanigans. And then they ended
No
up winning.
WCW style.
No,
Steiner against Steiner, Harlem Heat against Harlem Heat. It's every how
exactly.
does what's the possibility? How did this happen? Every single match was
Every
partner
single
against
match.
partner.
Yes, I put everybody in the wheel of names and just, spun it until we ran out of names. This team won the tag titles. They're called Armed and Dangerous. I don't know if I have them pulled out here, but it's Ulog and Lord Nigel Turnbuckle the Third. It's a caveman guy, and then
Lord Nigel Turnbuckle the Third. I love it.
It's one of the greatest names in bootleg wrestling.
let me see if I can find him here. I didn't come up with it. There was actually George Broderick Jr. came up with it. The whole story behind the creation of this character is kind of funny. He was doing a
No,
signing at the
as
comic book store, and we were doing a Champions of the Galaxy tournament while he was there. And I was like, "Hey, would you like to draw a card for this game?" He's like, I don't know. I really don't want to." And so he was just sitting over there, and all of a sudden he comes over and he hands it to me. He's like, "Here." He's like, "His name's Lord Nigel Turnbuckle the Third. Here he is."
I like him.
And this is his tag partner Ulog. He's a caveman, a wrestling caveman. So they don't fit together well at all, but
Do you use the tagline "Wrestling so easy a caveman could do it"?
I should. He might be offended. But Ulog was like he was like the original Jabroni character from my starter set of cards. But for some reason, the stream just like latched onto him, so I had to update him and make him better because he was a fan favorite to the point where people expected him to win. So they're my tag champions. Then they defended it twice against the people that they won it from, the Creatures of the Night, a Sam Looptak creation. Old school, we updated them in color. And so they defended the titles twice just by losing by disqualification. So then we made a stipulation, and this was at the last show that I ran, the Out with a Bang show, that if they got disqualified, they'd lose the titles. So they lost by count out instead, and it just worked out perfectly. So now they're going to do a torture chamber match whenever I come back for the tag titles.
This episode is going to be called Spoiler Alert for your Next Dimension Wrestling fans.
But that's already been out there for them. So then there's some world title controversy. I run an event called the Heroic Gauntlet every year in November. It's basically like a Royal Rumble, but it's a series of one-on-one matches, and it's only 10 guys. And I usually debut a new character from the next set that way. So I debuted a character called Robert Hager Knight, who is the illegitimate son of Troy Boy, who was raised by Bob Hager, his rival. He didn't realize it was not his son. So he brought him into the Fed because he and Troy Boy's father founded NDW. So this guy, and it was random drawing again, he enters last in the Heroic Gauntlet, wins the #1 contender spot for Out with a Bang, and then wins the title in a dominant fashion, which I was surprised by. So he's the current champion. He wins the title in 3 matches. So there's going to be a feud there.
Brought to you by Telemundo.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the 2 main titles there and what's going on. So a lot of like they're calling him a nepotism hire and all that stuff, and you got the last spot by favoritism, even though it was totally random. It worked out for a good story for sure. So a lot going on. I'm not 100% sold on the brand split, but I think it needs to happen just so there's a reason to use all these cards because there's a lot of them. And then the new edition starts, like that's even before introducing all the guys from the 2135 set. So should be interesting.
And you don't want your own guys to get lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. Which can happen. But some other big news.
I would say, because I watched your show and it's like, who's my champ?
Yeah. That's like the end of the year sucked. For me, like I had to postpone and cancel so many streams because first, my wife was pregnant. Then my computer died. My new gaming computer died. So I lost that for a month. And I didn't want to bother setting everything up on a backup computer. There's a lot of work that goes into like doing that stuff live. So I didn't just like, it's an excuse to take a break. And then by the time I got back after the holidays, we were all sick. Like we had the flu in our house and couldn't get rid of it. So I just, forgot everything that was going on, literally. So hopefully with the reboot and the different branding and all that stuff, it will work a little better. But the plan is to relaunch on St. Patrick's Day, which is the date of my next Skinathon for Stream
It just
Raiders.
sounds dirty.
I know.
Doesn't it?
So dirty.
Skinathon.
The Skinathon. So yeah, that's where we're
Build
at.
only channel. OnlyFans. Skinathon.
Hannibal presents Skinathon.
I'll say it again. If there was a market for me on OnlyFans, I'd do it.
Maybe on Next Dimension OnlyFans.
Maybe. So yeah, that's where we're at. Some big things to expect this year. John Heel, who's been like the player coach of the Deadly Alliance, he actually becomes a full-time wrestler in 2135. And he's got the toughest card that I've produced up until like some of the Stream Edition characters. So he'll be fun to put in there. He'll shake things up a bit. It's basically he put this team together to capture all the belts, and then they just haven't. So he's gonna step away from the manager role and be an in-ring competitor. So if you can't get somebody else to do it, you got to do it yourself. So
Is that his motto? Because that was the Simpsons tagline when Homer ran for mayor. Can't
Yep.
someone else do it?
That should be his tagline. But yeah, he should be fun. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Halloween Hank said he would break up the holiday horror team if he doesn't win the title in 2135. So there's that story as well.
Some of the artwork.
Scary. I think that pretty much covers what's going on there and what to
Yeah, there's only
expect.
one guy I don't like on that, and that's Lambert. I'm not a
Lambert,
Lambert.
Lambert's the best. He's the guy. If you need a bad guy, you just plug him in, and he usually does decent. Where is old Lambert? There's a special edition of card of him in the works, by the way. Yep, that's the NDW in a nutshell. Yeah, moving forward in the new year here.
Okay, there, Jeff Paffa.
I don't have any cards to hold up because I play predominantly online right now. I've got all my cards over there. I could grab them, but I'd have to sort through them to find the set I'm currently in.
It's
Because I
okay.
play online, I don't like getting out the cards. They pretty much, I still buy the sets and I set them in a bin and then I never touch them again.
So you collect them?
I do, but not as like a collection. It's just I feel like if something were to happen online, I want to have the cards in case. Or if I was to, there has been times in years past where I played with a friend or a roommate back in my college days and stuff that it was nice to have the physical cards.
I get it.
And then if my kids play with me, they want to use the cards. They don't want to just watch me play on a tablet or something.
Hmm.
So it's nice to have them. I mean, I can't quite go into depth like you can because honestly, everybody knows how the GWF works for the most part. I
Right.
go with the traditional storyline. Some years ago, I decided I was going to start in 2074. I started in September 2074. A little bit selfishly, I started on my birthday in 2074 because if you remember, I took all this from the book. I don't remember specifics because it's been so long ago, but I know it started. I think in the book, the official book says it starts sometime in 2074 towards the end of it. So I
Hmm.
started in September, right around my birthday, and that is the anniversary date of my Fed, and I always have a special card every year. Um, so it's the only year in my Fed's history where you look at my awards and stuff, it says 2074/75 because I covered like a year and 4 months for my awards that year. But I started much like other people did with the storyline between Omega and Morpheus, and then Dorado Sundown was there. I did, because of GWF Origins, include Jack Hood originally. I thought he made it
Mm.
interesting. He wasn't a part of the roster, but he had a lot of unsanctioned matches that would hurt people. He started a little group with, if I remember correctly, it was Torin Kalin was also from there, and uh, Blood and Jammer Defiance. They were his little group that would actually were signed to GWF and couldn't have real matches while he just hurt people. And it actually built a great storyline in my Fed where Torin Kalem eventually, after Jack Hood had hurt Omega and Morpheus, he stepped up and saved the company. Yeah, well, not that version, but yeah.
That's what I have
I
in
was
front
still
of me.
black and white. Sorry, I was blue and white.
Yep, blue and white.
Blue and white. But no, he actually saved the Fed for me, beating Jack Hood, where he completely got him out of the Fed, where he wasn't allowed to come back. And then the GWF became Omega and Morpheus's vision, where it was purely sport to
Hmm.
avoid war and this and that. And it was basically sport back then. Back then, I did one card a month, a gaming month, just to keep things moving through with such a small roster from 2074 all the way into 2086, and then going into March of 2087 when Thanos officially broke the Galactic Code, and then that occurred, and that just completely changed my Fed. Then I went to the format of one card or one card a week. So I've kept my cards short, as Mike has attested to on my posts. I typically do 4 matches. I do add a couple interview segments or post-match segments and stuff like that, but that's typically a show for me.
Hmm.
But 4 of those in a gaming month, and then one big card. I've pretty much stuck to that philosophy for a while now. There was a time when I was going to the conventions and stuff, I wanted to be current, and I started playing in 2119, and then I did play that all the way up to 2130. So I have a little bit of that history already in my Fed or logged, but it's not technically happened in my Fed yet.
Yeah.
Because once I went back to 2074 and I decided I was going to quit, I was going back and forth, and I'd play a month of 2090 and a month of 2130, and it just wasn't getting me
Hmm.
anywhere. So I stopped
Yeah.
playing the current, and I went back, and I did not lose in the shuffle or anything. I stuck to my 4 weekly cards and my one big card a month, and I've stuck with it. And now I've played all the way to 2101, which is I'm currently at the end of June 2101 on that. So I
How
mean, it's
many
good
cards do you put in
history,
a year?
huh?
How many cards do you have in a year? Is it
Let's
like
see. So I have the 4 times 12, so that's 48, plus another 12 that are the bigger shows, which is 60. I also have my Ring Warrior tournament, which is my version of the King of the Ring. So that would be 61. Um, yeah, that's probably about it, though. I think I stick pretty much to that. So 61 cards a year seems to be pretty accurate. I'd say give or take a couple, but you know, I feel like it's enough to build a good standings. I do use like a stroke rating for my guys. Just recently, if you follow my Fed, I actually got tired of the trying to write so much by myself, so I picked up the game Face to the Mat, which is created by one of my favorite groups, Play Games, that also created that NASCAR game I play. But this is their wrestling game. The problem with it, in my opinion, is that it's too much related on a book, and like they have these facts to action cards where it doesn't matter which wrestler does it. It's just a flip of a card. Any wrestler could have that happen. I don't like that. I like that GWF has the more card influenced results based on the wrestler abilities. But I wanted this because this book is fantastic. If you use it, it's got like interview segments where it'll tell you who was randomly interviewed, and it has little like outcomes, like pre-match, post-match, like little charts in there that you can roll and see what happens. And that adds a little flair to it. I used to do ratings in my Fed that were based on, I can't remember what I called them now. I just deleted them recently. It was like a bonus for like having segments, and I had one that was just called segments. If it was like it wasn't really anything special, but it was something to progress a character. That was my stroke system mixed with a win tally based upon how they had done in the previous 3 months. I replaced that with what this book calls a TV grade, which is basically their TV presence,
Hmm.
like how much the fans want to see them and whatnot. And then a grudge grade, which is how much that person is annoyed with their station and like the federation and how much they want to be on TV. So if you have a high grudge grade, you're more likely to attack someone or something. If you have a TV grade, you're more likely to get the segments or the promotion for the company or like a press release type thing, that type of thing. So I've kind of replaced that. It's still the same premise though. It's a stroke system and it's based on 3 months time. So when I book my Fed, what I do, and so I'll book the next big show, and I loosely base it on what we know as big shows, like the pay per views that WWF puts on, the WCWs, stuff like that. In fact, I usually don't even bother changing the name. My next one is In Your House Interplanetary Incident. So it's like one of my In Your House pay per views. I'm going through that kind of era right now with my Fed a lot. Um, but that being said, I basically plan out the next big card based upon my rankings, and then I look at how many weeks I have between my last big show to the next one, and I fill those in with matches, and I do randomly select those matches. I literally have the list of wrestlers, put them in a randomizer, and then I match them up. I mean, I don't let them go against their friends. If they're like you alluded to earlier with the team aspect, I don't let them go against people on their team. Or when it was straight cut, good guy, bad guy, I didn't have good guys face good guys or bad guys face bad guys. Now there's I'm in the 2101 and I've got the Citadel, the Elite, the Champions of the Galaxy, and the CPC. They're allowed to face a little bit more of, you know, whoever, as long as they're not on that team. So I've got a lot of that, but I do randomly select them because I like to build that for the the rankings. I like to not be in charge of who's facing who. I want the matches just for matches, so I can see them climb the rankings. And that's pretty much how I book my Fed. It kind of books itself in that regard. I mean, once a month I sit down and update my rankings, and that's what I base the big cards on, and then I mix in the random matches in between. And then, like I said, I use this book over here to kind of chart what's going to happen in the Fed. I roll before each match to see if something cool happens, and after each match to see if something cool happens. The only thing I'm missing using that philosophy is they have something with that game called a wild card, which would be your match interference and stuff. There's not a lot of that I roll because that's something that comes out during the game. And I feel like if I have outside interference or something, that's where I add that in the GWF realm. I don't do it too much without that. And that's, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to know about it, but the storyline wise, I play it by the book. I read the book usually in like end of October of the current year I'm playing. So that way, November, I'm building into December. And then once I have my December big card, usually my next year starts after the December big card, which could be anywhere middle of the month to end of the month, depending upon the year, just how it fits with my schedule. And that's when I start the progression into okay, this time. You might see little bits of it towards the end of October, mid November, but then going into December is where the transitions really start to happen. And I try to write them into the storyline. It's
I
a
did
little
notice
hard
that.
at times. Go ahead.
I did notice you do veer off, like you added caddy to uh
Yeah,
your promotion.
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't seen Lycosa show up or the theater
He
of
hasn't been introduced yet. So I don't know how much you guys are familiar with the online COTG online, but when you buy a set, that's the good thing about COTG online. There's no collectible trading card aspect of it. When you buy a set, you get the special edition cards for that set online. So Caddy, however you want to say his name, I always pretend like it's Kati, but whatever. We've had name discussions before.
Cotty.
But anyway, he was introduced with that set. When you go to COTG online and you go to the gallery, he's in that set. So that's kind of what I based on. Lycosa will eventually be in. I don't know what year they add
I
him
think
on
he shows
there.
up in 2135 official, 2105 officially.
Yeah, so I probably got a few years for him, but he'll be used too once he's in the set. I just liked him because in a time period when I didn't have a lot of guys that was either good guy or bad guy, he was one of those middle of the grounds. Like sometimes Splatter's that, sometimes Wolf is that, where they can face either side. So I liked characters like that. I'm a little disappointed because he's been so successful. He did
Yeah,
win my
he
main
has.
title once. Uh, I wasn't expecting that for him. I thought he'd be a mid card filler, but his card's really good actually. So it was a surprise. But yeah, so I enjoy playing by the book. I enjoy playing by the timelines. I think my favorite part of doing that is I get to compare it to other people's and see our results similar, different, but we know we're all using the same cards, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. So if I don't know someone, especially if I'm going to a con or something, but they are in the same timeline as I am, I can say, "Oh yeah, what's going on in your Fed?" Or "Did you play this era and what happened in yours?" And we can compare. I think
Yeah.
you miss some of that when you do the bootlegs.
Hmm.
Like to me, that's the camaraderie aspect of it and sharing it with others is just as important. I like posting my Fed and people reading it and then saying, "Well, this is what happened in my Fed." I don't feel like you get that too often with the bootlegs, unless everybody uses
Yeah.
the same bootlegs. But
Right.
so that's kind of why I stuck with the book, and I just like to compare to other people's Feds and see if our histories are same. Because that always amazes me in games of chance such as this is that we can all play with the same cards and have completely different results,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
and that's what I enjoy. And I don't think you get that if you don't have that element.
Oh, that's true with with the game. That there is a chance, and every so often you'll hear people. Oh yeah, I had Pulsar Prime and Beast Rider upset people for my Intergalaxian tag title. And other people are like, that could never happen.
But it happens.
It does.
Yeah. And they had 5 defenses and lost every defense by countout because they were both C ring. And in the old days, 10 through 12 was an automatic countout.
It's
I
all
will
shoot.
say one thing I enjoy about my Fed too is that now that I've played, this many years, which is like what now, 30, 37 years or something. I introduced a Hall of Fame after about 30 years, and I like that I have that now, and I'm building history in that way.
Hmm.
So every September I do a special Hall of Fame induction. Every year there's a singles wrestler, and every other year I add a tag team to it. So I like that too.
Okay, so we left me for last because I run a few feds. I'm going to skip the Legends feds. I run two of those. I run a Legends fed and a Hollywood fed. And in all honesty, the Hollywood fed is one of my favorite feds because I don't know who any of these guys are, so I just get to make everything up about them.
There you go.
But how I ended up with a bunch of feds. So I started off with the GWF like everybody else did, except as soon as I got Akuma, I was like, ooh, I like bootlegs. This could be fun. And then I would add bootlegs and more bootlegs. But uh, I had a ranking system. I ranked all my wrestlers from 1 point to 5 points, and that's how you could get if say Pollux is 1 point beat Chaos, he'd get 5 points, which would just shoot him right up the rankings. But if Chaos beat Pollux, he'd get 1 point. So Chaos doesn't ever want to fight Pollux. So it forces you to fight the tougher guys.
Okay.
And so I'd get more and more of these guys, and I wouldn't allow a 4 point bootleg in my fed. The toughest bootleg is a 3 because I just don't want bootlegs, dominating.
Hmm.
And so I got enough of them, and I had like 60, 70 wrestlers, and I'm like, okay, I got to break this up. And so I broke up my GWF, and I created a smaller fed called the my UWA, and I put all my 1 and 2 point wrestlers in there, and just let them go nuts. And after a while, the GWF, and I kept adding more and more, and I'd get enough, and I'm like, I'm getting out of hand here. So I made 3 feds. But the reasoning behind that was because, and then if you're unfamiliar with Premier League soccer, you can move up.
It's called relegation and promotion.
Yes.
Ooh.
For you Americans. I don't even know what accent that was. Just wanted to do one.
Ooh.
It was definitely not British, so I don't know what I was going for because that's the Premier League, the English Premier League.
So because you're awarded points. So the guys who would win usually the heavyweight title or be involved in a lot of big feds. So I would send up the top 2 single wrestlers, and the top tag team would move up. And my NGA, which is my New Galaxian Alliance fed, the top two wrestlers would move up there. The top tag team would move up, but the bottom 2 wrestlers would move down, and the bottom tag team would move down. So that fed had a lot of shakeup constantly. So it was really neat. And how I did it is, and then every 4th year I would do a complete and utter redraft, just to keep things fresh. And I decided I'd see other people do things, so I got some ideas from different people on how they run even titles. Like in my GWF, I have a heavyweight champion, that's Matador. My Intergalaxian champion, which is Colossus. My tag team champions, which are the Colonizers, Buck and Max. And my GWF TV champion, the British Bomber, which is an NGO character. For anybody who collects some of the NGO stuff. And I've used the NGO characters. And even some of the wrestlers, the bootlegs, I have them come and go. They don't all like the bootlegs don't always stay, so they'll filter in and out. And for my New Galaxian, my heavyweight champion there is Fantastic, because if I bought the sets, I'm going to use them. So what 2074 had already happened, and all those. So I'm like, I still want to use some of these characters. So and I have what's called an Iron Man title for my mid card title for that, and that's held by the Rising Sun. But what that title is it's every title every match is a best 2 out of 3 falls, and there's no managers allowed at ringside. So it shows who's going to be really who's going to be the better wrestler there. And then I have my Intergalaxian Tag Champions, which are Paragon and Code Enforcer. And then I have what's called a tournament title. So every wrestler, it's just 4 wrestlers, but they each wrestle 2 matches. And that's currently held by Caddy.
Cody.
Yeah,
Catty.
Gee.
Catty.
And so that's actually been quite well. But it's the bottom fed that gets interesting, because my other 2 feds, I keep it capped at 40 wrestlers. It can't go past that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have usually between 8 and 10 matches per card, and whichever wrestlers don't get used on those automatically have to get used on the following card. So everyone is constantly being used. And then when I run it was called the UWA, but I had Magnus Colby buy it, and so he calls it the CPC. So I do have a CPC fed. And this one, to Jeff's chagrin, I have 6 titles.
Ugh.
But,
that hurts my heart.
But 3 are for the 1 and 2 tier wrestlers, because that's what the Fed was built on. It was built on low-level wrestlers. But then when I started introducing, every set had to come up through the CPC. So they all the wrestlers actually had to work their way up. So the current CPC champion is another NGO wrestler by the Big Con. If anybody follows that. And my CPC Universal is Mangus, the big buggy guy from the blue set. And
yeah,
then
Mangus, the destroyer of humans, right?
Yep. And then this is weird, because in this promotion, this is the only promotion where I'll allow people to hold multiple belts. So I do have different rules for different promotions. Both my CPC Tag Team Champions and my Milky Way. So I call my low tier titles are called the Milky Way. So I had the Stormtroopers, Vlad Hammer and Powerhouse, upset and win my both. So they hold all the tag gold, and they're not a very good team, but hey, it's an upset and an upset, and it's kind of fun to use them like that. And then I have I think Rob Bobian gave me this. It's called the Gauntlet Champion. And so there's you have 10 guys ranked, and they have to fight their way through a match after match to get to the champion. And so if you don't beat your guy quickly, it's basically the champion has the advantage. And I don't this promotion here only has 2 or 3 managers, so there's not a whole lot of managers down here, which is it's kind of interesting, because the other Fed, almost everybody, because you use a lot of stables and everybody has managers. So I wanted one Fed where I didn't want a lot of managers, just to see how much influence
Mm-hmm.
it can be. And with it's and then all the cards here are also smaller, so it's only six to 7 matches, but it's the same thing. I drop it down, so the wrestlers, some of them might not only get to wrestle 1 out of every 3 cards. And in this one too, I'll use guys, and if I don't like them, I just shuffle them along within 1 or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're main parts of the game, I may not like them, and they may not last long then, or they'll go off until I can come up with a better idea for them or a storyline. And then I did create a women's Fed. I had to use a lot of bootlegs. Broc sent me some of his bootlegs, and I used some of Dave Schaefer's. I and I trying to remember. I think it was Loud and Noxious had made an all women's set, didn't he?
Hmm. He did.
Yeah, so I used some of them. My current GWF Women's Champion is Sniper, and the my GWF Women's Tag Champions are the Greek Goddesses, which is uh, one of Brock's characters. I'm trying to remember her name right now.
Galeen.
Yeah, Galene and Cassandra. It's Cassandra. It's from Tom because he does a lot of Greek influence. So that's where I got them from. And they're currently like 6 or 7 defenses, and they make an odd tag team. But doing it this way, where people get relegated, it forces you to, sometimes people can uh, get put in teams where they might not be. Like I had uh, I had to break up. Yeah, there she is. I had to break up Dregs and Mace because Mace was just so bad with points that he got sent down, and he teamed up with Jack of Diamonds, who moved up, and they turned into one of my most dominant tag teams and captured the NGA tag titles like 3 times. They moved up to the GWF, and they're battling for the tag titles. So it was just really surprising like that. How I keep track of all my storylines is I write them out. I have the booklets here, and so I can filter out, and I can follow. Okay, you know, now I don't know who's going to move up and down, but with this Fed, so the next year, 2106, it's a reboot where there's a total redraft. So I got a chance to design my Fed where, okay, I know guys are going to come in, 100% reboot, and that's how I've been doing it every 3 years. I do a reboot, but during those time it goes to relegation. Guys move up and down. Every Fed has their own rules. I do a few different rules for each one. Like in my CPC, they can capture multiple titles. In the GWF, I use a red card system
Hmm.
for disqualifications. So if you fail it once, you get a yellow card. Fail it twice, you get another yellow card. Third time, you're DQ'd. So DQs are really rare in my GWF. I don't like DQs.
Okay.
And in the other Fed, I use the roll twice. I just try to keep things different and see what house rules people use, and okay, I'll add it to this Fed. So it gives me a chance to try out different rules and different promotions. And that's how my Feds have been all working.
Very nice.
It's a lot of feds and a lot of titles.
It is. I know it hurts you.
You can never have too many titles. Just look at
My
AEW.
my GWF Fed has the Galaxian, the Interplanetary, and Tag. That's it.
You need a TV title in there.
Nah, I don't need it. Not with 4 matches a week and 1 weekly show.
That is a small card.
Yeah,
I like it.
You should bump that up to 10.
It originally was based on if you remember Raw when it first started out and it was 1 hour.
Yeah, I get that.
That's kind of what I was mimicking at the time. And
I bet you there's only 3 or 4 matches on Raw when it's 3 hours.
Well, when it was 2 hours, there was times when you'd have and even in the old WCW Nitros, you look at them, there was maybe 25 minutes of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a 2-hour show.
Just a bunch of shenanigans.
I don't want to go that crazy.
No, but it's fun to hear different people's Feds and, like I said, how they work things. Like I never would have thought of putting only 4 matches on a card. Like nobody would ever get to wrestle.
Oh, they
But
get to wrestle. what I do with, well, you got to remember my roster's still only 30 singles wrestlers,
Yeah,
and not every tag team gets seen every month. But I feel like that's what I grew up with in WWF. Not every tag team was seen every month,
yeah.
and then the singles, if they don't end up having a match in that month, they always get a skit or a promo of some type. So
Hmm.
they're mentioned. They're not like falling off the face of the earth.
And the one thing I do too is at the end of my year, I hold a massive tournament. So all the promotions come together for the only time of year, and it's called the Grand Championship. And I do one for singles and one for tag, and it's held over the promotions basically take a 2 week go on hiatus while this massive tournament's being held. And it works out well because if you win it, that's a huge bump in points, and if you go far enough, you get a bump in points. So you're setting yourself up for advancement for promotion. And if you
How
bomb,
often does one of the guys from the lowest feds win it?
it's never happened, but a couple of them have made final eight.
It just, it's like the NCAA tournament where a 16 seed never wins. In fact, nobody's ever played in the championship that was below like an 8 seed, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was an 11 recently. But yeah, it just doesn't happen.
No, and I don't expect it to, but when I saw it in eight, I was like, "Ooh!" I got excited.
Yeah.
Some upsets are happening, and and so uh, and the smaller Fed does have the most people in it,
Hmm.
and I rank the wrestlers. It's not random. I ranked it all the they go into two different brackets, 64 on each side, and work their way down. So it's fun, and I know some people don't like tournaments. Some people I'm a big fan of tournaments.
It is a good way to get some matches out there that mean something without.
So let me ask you this though: when you do the tournaments, because I deal with my Fed and I do run one tournament a year. Occasionally, I'll have more than that if there's a stipulation that I need to cover. But usually, it's just my Ring Warrior tournament. That's a one night tournament where the winner will end up wrestling 3 times. But when I've done other ones, I've done like where there's other matches added in and stuff to build a card. Do you do it when you do that big tournament just as a straight tournament? Like,
Yeah,
how do you view it in your mind? Is it like a one weekend only? This is going to happen, or does it even have a timeline?
it's the hundred and well, because it's 128 man. It's over a 1 week period, so there's so many matches per day.
Yeah. So from a wrestler standpoint, how many rounds is that? Is that 7 rounds
I think so.
or 5 rounds?
I
Let's
don't
see, you
have it
get
in
down
front
to
of me.
64, then down to 32, down to 16, 8,
Four,
4,
two.
2. So yeah, it's like a full week with
Yeah.
one match per day.
Well,
Those first days would be a lot of matches.
Yeah, it would. But then the last day you only have one match you're building up
oh
to.
no,
I
like
almost feel like feuds would come along the way, and they would have a full card on that final day.
the
But it would
the
only one of them would be the main event.
the first round takes like 3 days because it's still like 64 matches. You're not getting 64 matches on a card.
You're not.
You can hold them simultaneously in several different
Different
areas.
cities,
Yeah.
like WrestleMania 2 style.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
I wanted to hear the logistics of it because I mean some people would just play a tournament just to play a tournament.
No,
They
Hmm.
no,
wouldn't think of it.
that's why I said that all the promotions go on hiatus for 2 weeks while this happens. So it's interesting. And the one thing I try to, and with my super cards, with the women though, instead of a super card, they wrestle for a cup. And and they wrestle for the same cup every you know, so they're not gonna have, like a WrestleMania and then a Starcade or whatever. It's that cup every time they're up for their super card, it's that cup.
And
So
do you
there's
guys use a like a perpetual calendar or anything? Because I always find myself looking at that to make sure my timelines
I do.
add up. Do
yeah,
you?
no, I run a calendar.
Yeah, like 20. Like when I'm in 2101, I bring up the 2101 calendar. I run the
I do
shows on
that.
certain days.
Like I see where
No,
holidays
I
fall and
don't,
stuff like that because they.
I don't do that.
Yeah, you're
Like,
not just committed. 6 feds is a lot to have happen. Do 2 of your feds ever book on the same night?
um, the odd time I've had it happen, but it doesn't matter if it does because the wrestlers don't cross over.
I could just picture you having a television station that's nonstop wrestling, and every day there's a new fresh show.
Yep.
It's the Fight Network. That's what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
It's funny.
But we can start wrapping this up if you want.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you haven't done so, please click that subscribe button, which is somewhere below Jeff. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you do anything unique in your Fed, leave it in a comment below, please. Let us know what you have going on in your Feds. Always good to hear from you. While you're here, scroll on down to the description where we have links to all of our friends who make Filsinger Games related content, including the official Filsinger Games podcast roll up, the Legends team's Uncharted Territory, Dizzy Dice from Lee Longpre, Grant's Filsinger Games Fancast. Here on YouTube, you'll find Grant's solo promoter, Heartland Championship Wrestling from Dave Little. Brad Plays 81. He runs a bootleg Fed and a Legends Fed, I believe. You'll have Bucky 749. He has a variety of content. He's a friend of the show. And I'll be back on Twitch hopefully soon here. I'm not sure what days, but it'll be probably sporadic here for a little while we get into the swing of things. But keep an eye on that. The Skinathon is on St. Patrick's Day, Sunday. I think we start at noon. We're getting on early that day, so we'll be doing stuff throughout the day. Not all Champions of the Galaxy related, but a variety of things to try and keep people entertained because it's going to be a long one. So check that out. Mark your calendars for that. There will be giveaway cards and things like
The
that throughout the
Skinathon is
day.
going to be a long one.
Going to be a long one.
He sounds tall.
It's going to be great. So yeah, a lot of things to look forward to. Thanks again, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Join us next time where we cover Mike's Mount Rushmore of his 4 titles or his 4 feds.
Yep.
That's just a joke. Spoiler alert.
Awesome.
Okay.
Later.